welcome Jacqui Barrett-Poindexter, President and CEO of CareerTrend.net. Jacqui calls herself a chief career writer and is one of only 50 master resume writers who have crafted more than 2,000 career stories. Her clients include CEOs and multinationals, as well as startup executives onto their next adventure. Labeled shy in kindergarten, Jacqui won several essay and poetry contests in high school. She started her career as a corporate writer, including writing marketing and copy for individuals and small business and writing resumes. She was approached by Career Trend to manage their resume clientele after an ad that she wrote caught their attention. Jacqui loved the interesting stories she got to tell through resumes, including that of a CIA agent turned private sector lawyer. Jacqui purchased Career Trend in 1998, grew it to a thriving resume writing business, and has since been loving being her own boss, doing her work from the sunny shores of the Texas Gulf Coast. Jacqui helps her clients land their dream jobs, I love that, and loves their glee when they first read what she's written about them. Welcome, Jacqui.
Well, thank you for having me, Maggie. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I love your introduction.
Well, thank you, right? Isn't it wonderful? I think everybody should just have their introduction like that or bio read to them once a day. It just makes you feel so good to hear, like, that's my story. Well, and you did such a beautiful job sending me your bio because you wrote it as your story, just like you do for your clients. And I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to share that so people could, really know you walk the talk for yourself too. So talking about things today, we got to talk about resumes. There's a lot of people who are making career change for various reasons. And so the resume is still something they need, right, to do that. So I love this concept of helping a person land their dream job. So what does a resume need to look like in your opinion? Is there a formula of sorts that you use? I doubt it's one size fits all, but tell us about that. Like to really help to land that dream job, what do you think a resume should look like?
All right. So that's a great question. And it's both broad and it could be answered very narrow. So I'm going to try to be as narrow as possible. There is not one size fits all. Everything has to be very custom on that. But so kind of the parameters, keep in mind that you're not telling your whole kitchen sink story. So to land your dream job, really understand what that dream job is. What are the qualifications? What are the aspects that you love about it? So not just what they're looking for. You can look up several position descriptions of that dream job, and you might get something that's written like a tome. It maybe have so much detail about what they're looking for. But really, if in that case, kind of shrink it down and say, what are the key areas that I map to on my dream job and why this appeals to me, and then start sorting through your stories that matter to those areas. But also keep in mind, one of the key elements of any story is to keep it concise but detailed. So let's say, and I don't worry about whether you're entry level or CEO, but certainly with the executive level that I work at, I say 3 to 4 pages so that you can build in context of your story, the nuance of who you are, how you solve problems, but not just how you solve problems, but how you influence people to get on board, and also how you overcome adversity. So even when you've done everything right as a leader or as an influencer or as just a task-oriented person executing, when something still doesn't go right, and how you overcome that or backtrack or start over. So a lot of people get so caught up on the outcome that they don't feed the nuance of who they are. So I'll kind of stop there because there's a lot more that could be dug up and to describe what that means. But those are key elements if you want to, get to your dream job, is building a more contextual story.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you go into that much detail with people, because the resume does need to tell the story. And I think that, that's what it's what makes it compelling, right? We love stories and we learn through them, and you can learn about a person through the story that their resume tells. So I think that's a neat way to look at it. Now, not everyone listening may be as good as with words and, in writing as you are, and they may want to hire you. I hope so. But do you have any tips for helping people tell the story of their soul through that resume?
So it kind of dovetails into what I was just talking about, to tell the story of their soul. So this is kind of a business answer to, because when you're telling your soul part of your story. For example, you might be someone who has worked in a company who has been through a lot of shakeups, and that's happening a lot right now. But maybe you've had to be a part of the turnaround of that, of a portion of that company, or your little piece of it, or your department. And maybe your soul, maybe you have this desire to continue doing some of the aspects of that because you're good at it. You're good at, seeing big picture, or you're good at parachuting into the smaller detail. Either way, those are great skills. But maybe your soul doesn't want to keep on that path of working with a company that maybe is suffering or is struggling. So maybe you're ready to say, I want to go into a company that's a little more leveled out, but they still have, they still have issues. Every company has issues, or they just have opportunities for growth. And so you can use those skills that your soul and your mind and, your abilities all map to, and then think about telling a story that shows how you can leverage those skills for opportunity versus being labeled as a turnaround strategist. It's kind of a backdoor way of answering your question, but it's just something I've been thinking about, because I have a lot of clients who have these skills that they've used, and if they're going to try to make a transformation in their journey, which often they are, and I think you probably work with that, then they have to make a turn. And so if they just tell the same story, they might get in the same situation. So I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah, it does. Actually, I think that's a really good point to bring up too, because people don't know how to do that. Right. And you just described, you can still talk about how you did that work, but position it as in this new context, or that you don't get, so you don't get kind of pigeonholed. That's always a concern people have with their resumes as well. So
yes.
I know you've 2,000 resumes, 2,000 career stories. So given your years of experience, Jacqui, what are some common resume do's and don'ts that you've seen, people really need some help with?
Yeah. So I find that they've been consistent even for the many, the years I've been in this industry. And sometimes I assume people know, but I realize they don't. I had a C-level executive and come to me the other day and still was asking, should it be more than 2 pages? I'm afraid of going. And the thing is that page length rule for many years has not been there. It may have been way back when, but people scroll through resumes and digital content. The point is not to drown them in mundane. The point is to make sure that first section, that first page above the fold, that when they open it on their screen or on their phone, that it pops, and that they can skim and see the essence of at least your focus. And then but in order to so don't get tied down in these limiting rules and let that paralyze you. Also, don't just talk about responsibilities. And I think people know there's been a lot of education on that, to talk about achievements. But it's really easy when you think, well, I'm going to tell a bit about the context, to make it sound mundane. And start getting into responsibilities. Well, I want to make sure they knew I oversaw this team or that team, and then all of the people in it. And I want to get these keywords in here. And don't do that. Focus on story first, and focus of, what their needs are. And then when you can build in a few more phrases, intuitively, you will have the right language in there and the right keywords if you're focused. And I think that's so don't get bogged down in these rules of keywords and page length and all of that, but do build out a story, and then start carving the story tighter after that if it gets a little bit leggy. So
I love that. Because people do get caught up in that, and it's almost like the mechanics, right? They get caught up in the
Yes.
mechanics of it. And you're like, okay, but what's your story? And they're like, what do you mean my story? Right? Like that's where the real
Yes.
interesting stuff is. And I like the intuitive approach that you're like the right words will come through that even match better when you tell the right story, right? It'll
Yes.
automatically be there. I love that. Well, actually, I know you've told many inspiring stories of your clients landing their dream job. So I'd love to hear. I mean, we heard about the CIA agent turned private sector lawyer. Maybe it's that one, but I'd love to hear an example of someone whose story you're able to tell and how that worked out for them.
Okay. Yeah. And that one was so long ago, but it really was a good way to start. I mean, it was within my first couple of months. I was kind of exciting because back then I wouldn't have thought, oh, a resume writer, that was going to be such an exciting job, but I learned so much about people. So this one, I think that I decided to share is really about someone in the event planning industry, a leader in that industry. And what was really exciting was she was very vivacious and very creative and had a lot of ideas and deployed a lot of programs, but she was feeling a little stuck and felt in the culture. Maybe the culture was a little bit stagnant, stayed, they weren't as open and agile to ideas. And so it was really important for her to land in this next role that she envisioned, that more about the culture as much as it was the job would feed the culture, or the culture would feed the job to bloom. So she was staying kind of in the same arena, but it would be focused and allow her to bloom. And what she told me was that she landed her dream job in the right organization with the right company. And that was a target that is not always easy to get into the company you want. And that what was a great value add was that because of the process we went through of unfolding that and really refining her story, was that she realized these were roles, the roles she didn't want to talk to. So she was able to avoid and preserve our energy and say no to interviews. That's not always easy, because you want to practice interviewing, or you want to, bird in the hand, think, well, if I don't go to that interview, I may not have another interview. So, but she was able to be selective and then land where she needed and keep that energy going for that next opportunity that she was and she got it. But she, took some confidence to do that. For her to stick to her guns, as it were. So
I bet hearing her own story though helps. I bet your process helps build people's confidence.
That's what I hear. So I do like to that. I mean, it is rewarding because I believe in it and I believe in them, and so they do say that that hearing the story reflected back, that I would hire me type of response. But I mean, but it's also about being genuine to who they are.
Like, wow, I'm that good. Wow, I didn't even know that.
They get so used to doing what they do.
Yeah, and we all do. We get caught up. Yeah, just the doing. We don't really take that step back and look at what our story even is, or know that we can direct our story, and I love that client who was able to have the clarity and then was able to stay focused and know what was right. Because I do think things drain us. I love the way you said that. She was able to conserve her energy for what was most important to her. Because that is an important resource, that we often spend a little too willy-nilly. Resume writing has evolved, I'm sure, in the time that you've been working in the industry. And one area is AI or ChatGPT or any of these new technologies. So, how is that affecting resume writing? What are your thoughts on that? Should people be using this technology? Should they not? I mean, it's not like it's, only your opinion, but I'm curious, given all you've done with storytelling and how effective that is, does AI just replace that? Or are we able to get somewhere with it? Should we use it a little bit? Maybe as a starter? I don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you, Maggie. I'm still learning myself, and I did a little studying on it in the last few weeks, and I haven't just jumped fully on the bandwagon, but it is pretty easy to sign up. And so I was looking at the using the Chat tool, and I do think it's a good tool for people writing their own resume, people like myself helping people, with their resume stories. For example, you can go in and start having a conversation on Chat, maybe plug in, let's say the resume. Okay, so you're writing the resume and you're jotting some things down about your most recent role. Maybe that's the most relevant role. And you just do a brain dump, and you do have a whole bunch of material, maybe hundreds of words, several hundred words, and you're not even sure if it makes sense. So you put it into Chat, and then you can ask it to summarize it. And maybe just look at the summary and say, am I kind of going the right direction? This is a critical point I didn't put in, or that kind of gives the high points, a nice framework. But that aspect of it to me is just kind of a framework. And then from there, it kind of will take out some of the nuance, at least in my brief experience researching it. And so you definitely need a good writer, or to write it yourself, to write with, build it back up. But another piece you can use it for is if you have the resume done and you're in job search and you're looking, you pull, you get a job description or an opening that you see on LinkedIn, and you say, I'm kind of interested, I think I'm qualified, but kind of to verify that, you probably will know without Chat, but you could try it. You could put in your resume, or copy and paste most of your resume, and then say, ask Chat to compare it to this posting, and then paste in that posting. At least that's what I'm finding works. And it will actually give you an assessment. I did that with my own resume. I just did part of my resume. My resume that I have recently updated, which had been years in the coming, but it was my role as, owner of the Career Trend. So I put that piece in, and then I put a blogging position in, and it said, I was somewhat qualified. But then I added the rest of my resume, which talks about my professional blogging positions, like with Glassdoor and Lever and different places, and added that and did the full resume and asked if I was qualified, and it said I was exceptionally qualified because it was a blogging role. And so it sounds simplistic. I mean, obviously, to me, it was like, okay, obviously, if I didn't put the full resume in, I wasn't going to be as qualified because I didn't put the relevant information. But, it kind of was neat that it actually did. You could do that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think that most people know when they glance at a position and they glance at their resume if they're somewhat qualified. But it might be a helpful tool just to kind of confirm.
Yeah, I think so. Or see areas where if you might want to beef up or bone up, or, if you are trying to make a change, or you're not finding success landing a job, it's like, all right, well, what am I missing? Right. Or what might I work on? I think that's a good use of it. So you've expanded your work. I know you said you did your own resume recently, and now you're doing custom poetry via your Etsy shop, making really cool stuff there. And you recently placed top 3 out of 500 entries in a short story contest, Jacqui. So I love this. Your words are expanding in in the creative space. So tell us about that and where people can find out more about you and all your work, both resumes and poetry.
Okay. So, well, my resume work, which is my foundational work, is on careertrend.net. And then you can find me on all the social channels, LinkedIn at Master Resume Writer, and then others. The poetry, I'm on Etsy at JBP Micro Poetry, but I also have my own standalone site called Island Metamorphosis, kind of a mouthful, but anyway, that I brought in my micro poetry there. That is kind of in the infancy stage. I've been writing micro poetry for probably 12 years. And now I'm kind of playing with it to see how I can use it otherwise. Really underpinning all of that is I want to use all that I've gathered for for these sites and build a little coffee table book with my micro poetry. So So anyway, so the short story was actually probably one of my most exciting little feats, because in college, I studied writing, a bachelor's in writing with a journalism minor, and creative writing has always been a passion. And I'm able to bring that into my storytelling for careers. But I always say, a resume is a short story. So I joined this contest, and I hadn't written a fiction short story in years. So it was kind of a private little opportunity to see if I could place. And the fact that I placed, they had three places at the top, and then you had, door prizes, and I won the third, and I was very pleased. It was just fun. But I think it helps kind of underpin my confidence, because I want to continue to use that storytelling in my career stories. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of creative people who are very open to that kind of more creative side. So
yeah, and I think it's the direction. You're welcome. I follow you, and I love your poetry. I think you have such a great way of saying, like, expressing yourself and hitting on the message. Like, I feel like you've tapped into stuff that I've been thinking or feeling, which I think is really cool. And then saying it so beautifully. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I've been thinking or feeling. Like, literally, like, I'm like, I couldn't have said it that way, or at least, but I love it and I appreciate it, because the meaning is beautifully packaged. And I know you as value into words, that's just always kind of how you shown up. Is that your Twitter handle too? I think, is that maybe how we met? I think so.
Yes. And that's probably how we met. And that's actually my tagline for my business. So thank you for bringing that up. I should have.
Yeah, well, it works too, because it's always how I think of you, value into words. I'm like, yep, there she goes again, value into words. Now it's just with poetry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That means a lot. It really does, because that's what it's all about to me, is resonating with someone reading it.
Yeah. Oh, Jacqui, you have a gift. Yeah. It's real. And I love that you're exploring your passion. I can't tell you how many clients, they're more corporate, obviously, coming to me too, right? But then you find out that their soul and their dream is to be a novelist, or their talent is creative writing, but they haven't really incorporated that into their day job. And I'm like, why not? Like, this is what you need to do. And I just think it's beautiful the way you're weaving things together. So I know this was just for fun, but the fact that you placed, you didn't ask for my coaching, but I would say it might be something you want to pursue, because, chances are people read your resumes, they're going to love your storytelling too. So keep going, my friend.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your encouragement. Any coaching from you, I would value. So,
well, we definitely have a mutual admiration here, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your insights about storytelling and resumes. And to have a chief career writer, with over 2,000 career stories written, is such a blessing for all of us to hear from you. So thank you, Jacqui. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for your time and for inviting me.
My pleasure.